noticed that there's I'm not Blake generally. Blake's my boss, and a lot better looking than I am. Sorry for that. And unfortunately, he was called to headquarters this week, so he's not able to be here. But he sends his apologies, and I hope I can fill his very big shoes adequately. What I really want to talk about today is social by design, and I want to give you guys a flavour about how we think about social. And you know, coming from, as Nathan mentioned, I came from Microsoft, and you know, like most companies, we thought we had some idea about what social was. But when I joined Facebook, I really understood that Microsoft has very little clue on social. They're improving, and a lot of people are, but I want to give you guys a flavour about how we think about social and how that's transforming the internet. So I just want to start with a bit of a story. I'll hold the clicker right. This is actually a true story, and the point I want to make is just how much Facebook has been an integral part of our lives, and it basically mirrors our offline life. So our offline life and our online life, there's been this deep connection through the Facebook platform. There's a bit of a funny story. So this guy broke into a house, he robbed a house, and in the midst of the robbery, he decided to update his Facebook profile. Now, the thing that this guy wasn't very smart, because what he did is he used the computer in the house to do that. And he didn't log out. So when the police turned up and with the owner, it was pretty easy to figure out, what actually, or who was the perpetrator of the crime. So it's not often that Facebook gives advice to criminals, but if you're in the middle of a crime and you feel like updating your status, use your mobile. The point is, there's been this immense tie-in between what we do offline and how we act online. And I think it's worth just thinking for a minute what the internet was like only maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even sooner for a lot of people, because one of the great things about the internet was that it was completely anonymous. You could go on and do anything and get content, travel around the internet, and no one knew who you were. And that definitely had some advantages. But from consuming content, it definitely has a lot of disadvantages, because you don't know who you're talking to, and it doesn't reflect our offline life. And let me give you a couple of examples of my offline life. So this is a mate of mine called Peter, and despite this photo, Peter's possibly the worst fisherman in the world, because this was 2 days I spent with him on a freezing cold beach in Victoria and in Australia, and this was the only thing we caught in 2 days. We were pretty happy about it at the time, but it was pretty miserable. Other than that, I think we just lost everything. So I'll continue with it. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So Peter's a bad fisherman, but Peter's possibly, in terms of audio-visual, Peter's the guy. And when I went to buy a television, I didn't go shopping online. I just went to Peter, because Peter researches flat screens, TVs, and home audio constantly. And I just said to Peter, I've known Peter for 15 years, I said, what should I buy? And straight away, this Sony, blah, blah, blah. And off I went and I bought it. And this is how we make decisions. We're greatly influenced in this way, in terms of the way we make purchase decisions. And the big difference between that and researching online, I could go to a bunch of blogs, I could go to a bunch of review sites, but I really don't know in depth who I'm talking to and who's actually giving me the recommendation. And this is something that happens to us every single day across almost from the most simple purchase to the most complex. We ask our friends and we ask people that we respect. So in Peter's case, I'm not going to ask him about fishing, but I am going to ask him about, what's the next television that I should buy, or what's the best home stereo and video that I should buy. We're back. This is another buddy of mine. His name's Doug, and I used to work with Doug at Microsoft and in Hong Kong, and now I work with him at Facebook. Doug is a foodie. Doug spends enormous amounts of time researching restaurants, going to restaurants. He's actually got this really cool, peculiar habit. When Doug walks into a restaurant, he will spend 10 minutes walking around the restaurant, peering over people's shoulders, looking at what they're eating, and asking them what's good. He takes this very seriously. He just doesn't want to take the waiter's recommendation. So he puts a lot of work into figuring out what's good and what's not. And he's also put together this map, this Google map, with all the restaurants that he's been to in Hong Kong. He's done personal reviews of those restaurants. And because I know Doug, and I've been out with him to a number of restaurants a number of times, I know that his taste is kind of similar to mine, and I respect that. So when he tells me, when I want to figure out where to take my wife for our anniversary dinner, and Doug says you have to go here, it's done. And again, this is not an experience that's unique to me. We all have these experiences day to day. So really what I want to talk to you about is how that experience has come to the internet. And it's like, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, duh, like we know. But I think to recognise this and to sort of bring how this transformation has happened and what the impact has been to the industry, and most importantly, for the majority of people in this room, how does that impact your business and how does it impact how you talk to your customers? I think it's worth reflecting on how consumers have fundamentally changed the way that they look for information. Now, if you think about the way the internet started very, very early on, we had the directories and we had the portals. People were going to these sites and browsing for information, and basically information was pushed to them in a very similar way that people have been consuming media for hundreds of years. And then, as search engines got better, and the advent of Google, there was a phenomenon that that really drove people searching for information and getting into detail. And of course, we had right through most of the 2000s, we had the dominance of search in the way that people navigated the web to find information. And we think about the way that's changed today with social networking, not just Facebook, through Twitter, through blogs, and through a varied number of social media platforms. People are finding their information via their friends, which reflects their offline life. And this is, the statistics speak for themselves. I mean, I used to work in online publishing, and companies are always trying to figure out how to, like any media organisation, how do we get more readers, how do we get more viewers, how do we get more unique users to our site? And I'm sure everyone's been to CNN in the last year or so, close to it. On the right-hand side, above the fold, there has been for some time, a Facebook Connect application that you can see the stories that your friends have read. That application, that installation of Facebook Connect has led to over 50% increase in traffic to CNN. And that's amazing. I mean, for them, that's absolutely free. Facebook doesn't charge for it, but it makes their content that much more relevant because they're able to see what their friends are experiencing. Their friends are commenting on stories, hey, you really should read this because it's got an interesting perspective on the living classes, etc. And because it's recommended, it carries that much more weight and drives people to read the content. And that's a great outcome for CNN. Even the music industry, I think does anyone use Spotify? It is very US based, but it's worth checking out. Basically, it allows you to develop. I think it's what iTunes should be. If you go to iTunes today, the iTunes that I experience and that you experience is exactly the same. Basically, it's the top 20, it's the most popular. But that's not really built for me. I'm not really interested in Lady Gaga, sorry. I'm not interested in Katy Perry. And neither are most of my friends. So I'm interested in I have to go deeper and usually have to go elsewhere to find music that I like. But with Spotify, it's completely built around the user experience and built to the individual and their friends. So people can develop playlists and share those playlists. They can buy songs and suggest music that they know their friends will like or should experience. And again, this is about putting people at the center of the experience. And of course, in commerce, we've seen a very similar phenomenon. And Groupon, to an extent, I wouldn't say they're completely social, but they have redefined the way that, I guess, promotions work online. And we have some great case studies that we don't have time to go through today from Amazon and Levi's, and more recently from big retailers, that show that when friends recommend products to friends, that people buy it. There's a much greater propensity for consumers to take recommendations from their friends as the buy product. And of course, moving to Facebook, one of the most, I think, things that everyone takes for granted is that, well, I often ask, why are people spending so much time on Facebook? And one of the reasons is that homepage is built, is a unique build for every single person. There are over 700 million people on Facebook now, and every single page is different, and it's built uniquely for that person. And when you build these, and they're able to obviously you can customize and do all sorts of things in terms of how you manage that content. And because it's built around that person and their network, it's incredibly compelling. An example of that is our Photos product. I just want to talk about that just for a minute. There are a bunch of Photos products online. Right? All of these companies have Photos products, and I pretty much say without a doubt that all of them are better than ours. At Facebook, you can't upload high res, there's no red eye reduction, there's no all sorts of stuff. You can't rotate, you can't do anything, really. But why is it the most popular photo site in the world? Anyone want to have a guess? No one?
Brings activity back to the original personal content.
Tagging. As soon as Facebook released tagging, it exploded. And again, it is the most simple example of putting people in the middle of the product. And that was quite an amazing shift. When you think about, if I'd been standing up here about 5 years ago and saying there's a company called Zynga, be worth about $5 billion, and they're going to produce a game that looks like this, that's going to be more popular than console games, with the incredibly deep, enriching content that they provide, and the graphics and the immense immersive experience. There's going to be more people playing these one-dimensional kind of silly games. You'd call me crazy, but the big difference is that people experience these games with their friends, and that's quite amazing, and just shows you the power of putting people into your product and putting people at the center of your business. Because we're going through this fundamental period of transformation, and it takes businesses and people a little while to adapt. When automobiles first appeared on roads in the United States, there was a law that said that there had to be someone that walked in front of the car with a red flag because they didn't trust the drivers. And of course, that kind of takes away the experience of the whole thing of being in a car and getting from A to B or wherever a little bit more quickly and with a little more ease. But at the point in time, people really didn't understand the technology. And I think one of the things that we're always challenged with is that there's a huge amount of focus on fans. And I can tell you that I've had so many conversations with very senior people in marketing departments who said, yep, we're so committed to Facebook. You know, I've got all of my marketing managers, all of them have fan acquisition targets, and their bonuses are dependent on hitting those targets. And we're like, great, that's good, but it shouldn't be the focus. Like, it's a good start and it's important to build your fan base, but it's also important to figure out many things around how you're going to communicate with that fan base. And the reason that communication is important because fans are just beginning. If we look at a fan base of even a large brand page, it's very, very small in terms of the rest of the population of Facebook. And then if we were to look at friends of those fans, there's a fantastic opportunity to take your brand and amplify it through those fans into their networks. And this is where the real opportunity of Facebook is. And this is a very significant challenge for a lot of companies because there isn't a discipline or a skill set or IP that resides in marketing departments that is about communicating with consumers. That's never existed, and it's constantly, you know, when I speak to even more senior folk like, you know, MDs and CEOs of companies, they're like, we don't want to talk to customers. It's, you know, it's like, well, the world's changed. You actually do need to talk to your customers. You don't need to talk to them in a conversation every day, but you need to engage them, and because that's already happening. So what we've seen companies be really successful, businesses be successful on Facebook when they understand that their fans are the channel to their new customers, to friends of fans. And this is a really important dynamic, and the challenge that I'm constantly giving to our customers is, fine, that's great, we've got a great start around how you build your fan base, but the second part that you guys really need to get good at is understanding how to leverage that fan base to sell more product, and do so through those brand advocates. And when you do that, we've got loads of research about how effective that is. And this goes back to my first couple of slides about Peter and Doug. It's because when, you know, I didn't need to be sold the Sony television at all because Peter told me it was good and I'd trust Peter. And you know, when someone was recommending a product via Facebook advertising and you like a brand or you're interacting with a product, the brand metrics and the intent to purchase and, you know, all of the important stuff around driving marketing, all of that goes up. And that's incredibly important. So I actually did this last night. I got a bit of an analogy, and I need to ask you guys to, when you're playing the videos, to turn the volume down on the video. To kind of bring that home, and this is a really, I'm going to try a metaphor on you, a bit of an analogy, and we'll see how this goes. But it's overly simplistic, I know, but it really, I think, hopefully will bring home the point. So bear with me. The concept is, you know, old marketing is like 10-pin bowling, and new marketing is like pinball. Okay? So let's start the first video. So in this example, the ball is the message, right? And the person the guy that's putting the ball down the lane is the brand and the brand owner. And the pins at the bottom of the lane are consumers. And if you deliver your message with accuracy and precision and with the correct frequency, you literally bowl your consumers over. Thank you very much. And you know, it's not to say that this is in any way wrong, or you know, this is really how marketing has been, how people have looked at marketing for a long, long time. And the point here is that all of the energy sits in the brand owner and in the marketing department of the business. The consumer is completely passive. They're literally just wandering along and suddenly get confronted by a brand message. So we'll move to Pinball. So of course in this new construct of social marketing, I think Pinball's a great analogy because still in this case all of the message is put into play by the brand owner, but it's released into the consumer environment where the consumer will add or subtract energy, they'll iterate, they'll own the conversation for a little while, and then every now and again it'll get passed back, it'll fall back to the brand. And if the brand has that communication, has a communication skill and has that kind of new IP that I was talking about how to engage consumers in this environment, they can participate in the conversation and add to that conversation. And all of this, generally, empowers consumers to take ownership and brings them closer to the brand. And this is really the new paradigm that we're living in today. I think there are something like 100 million blogs, and 30% of them are talking about products and brands. So these conversations are happening with or without you. And so it's incredibly important, I believe, for businesses to start building that internal capability to be able to communicate with their consumers and figure out how they add value. Sorry. And this dynamic is not something that's new. This has been known to us for a long, long time about how groups of people get together and whether it's a Tupperware party or whether it's over a few beers at the pub, and they talk about products and they recommend products to each other. And the unique part about the environment that we have now is that brands and marketers have the ability to engage in those conversations at scale. So we've all known word of mouth is possibly the best marketing that you can get. But the challenge for marketers has been, well, how do you seed it and how do you scale it? And really this is the power of Facebook. If I like something, that goes out to my network of friends. And if they pass on, a few of them pass on the message, it goes out to their network and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to go through very I guess, everyone's been talking about paid, earned and owned for quite some time. So, I think I won't go through that. But what I do want to talk about is a very new product that we are releasing literally right now, and it's called Sponsored Stories. So, one of the problems, or one of the challenges, I guess, with Facebook is that when you publish on your brand page, that post will go out to somewhere between 7 and 15% of your fans. And depending on how relevant it is and how many comments and likes it gets, it'll go out to more, and that's great. But because there's so much content on people's home pages, and generally when a post goes up, it finds its way down the bottom and out of the home page pretty quickly if someone's a heavy user and got a lot of friends and interacting with a lot of content. So Sponsored Stories allows us to take either a news post or almost any kind of event that's generated by a fan and highlight that on the homepage to all the friends of that fan. So the brand message, whether it be a post or whether it be someone that's interacted with an app and done something, played a game on the page, the brand page, or even gone to the website and liked a product and through Facebook Connect, that comes back into the news feed, and we can take that and put it in a sponsored story. So the sponsored story goes from the news post, and it sits on the right-hand